Stop giving your value away for free. Here's an uncomfortable truth about people. They almost never appreciate what cost them nothing to get. It's not because they're heartless or scheming against you. It's simply how the mind works. It attaches worth to things that feel scarce, hard-won, or at risk of slipping away. The instant your time, focus, loyalty, and energy become available to anyone, no conditions attached, your worth in their eyes starts to quietly erode. That's the dark psychology behind value. Nobody wakes up one day and decides to respect or dismiss you. They watch how you treat yourself first, and their behavior simply mirrors that. Most people try to earn respect by constantly giving more of themselves. They drop everything the moment someone calls. They agree when every fiber of them wants to refuse. They over-justify their choices, over-deliver on favors, and repeatedly put their own needs last just to keep others happy. They assume this generosity will make people value them more. But psychologically, it usually backfires. Every time you consistently put someone else ahead of yourself, you send one quiet but dangerous signal: I'm always available. And anything that seems limitless stops feeling valuable. Greene has pointed out again and again that power starts with how you're perceived. Before anyone respects your talent, they're sizing up your standards. Before they're impressed by your achievements, they're clocking how easily they can grab your attention. If a bit of flattery is enough to sway you, they'll flatter you. If guilt works, they'll use guilt. And if they sense that your fear of rejection outweighs your self-worth, they don't even have to lift a finger. You'll do the manipulating yourself. That's why guarding your value isn't ego, it's self-preservation. Think of the people who constantly get walked over. They reply to every text instantly. They rearrange their whole schedule to accommodate others. They let disrespect slide again and again without any pushback. They keep handing out second chances to people who've never earned them. At first, this gets labeled as kindness, but eventually kindness without limits curdles into predictability. Predictability turns into expectation. Expectation turns into entitlement. Before long, nobody even questions whether they deserve your time. They simply assume they're owed it. Now picture someone who operates differently. They're courteous, but choosy. They honor their commitments, yet they won't sacrifice their own priorities just to be liked. They help others by choice, not out of fear of disappointing them. Their attention is deliberate, never automatic. They protect their time because they know it's one resource that can never be replaced. Without ever raising their voice or insisting on respect, they create a completely different dynamic. People naturally tread more carefully around them, sensing that their energy is a privilege, not something owed. This is where the dark psychology of value really shows itself. We're wired to protect what we fear losing. The mere possibility of loss builds appreciation in a way that unlimited access never can. When people are certain you'll always be there, no matter how they treat you, they stop putting in effort. But once they realize your presence is conditional on mutual respect, their behavior shifts. They start thinking twice before overstepping. They become more conscious of your time. They stop treating your loyalty as a given. None of this requires becoming distant, selfish, or calculating. Genuine value doesn't come from acting important. It comes from respecting yourself enough to protect what actually matters. Your attention has worth. Your energy has worth. Your peace of mind has worth. And if you keep trading those things away for a moment's approval, people will unconsciously conclude that you come cheap. The instant you stop making that trade, everything shifts. Remember, people always watch what you do far more closely than what you say. You can tell the world you deserve respect, but if your actions constantly betray a desperation for approval, they'll trust the actions over the words. The loudest message you'll ever send isn't spoken at all. It's demonstrated every time you refuse to lower your standards just to stay convenient in someone else's life. And once you stop handing your value away for free, the next challenge is becoming emotionally untouchable, because nothing earns respect faster than someone whose emotions can't be pulled around by strings. #become emotionally impossible to manipulate. Once people can no longer control your time so easily, they'll look for another lever, your emotions. This is where the real test begins. Plenty of people are careful with their schedules but careless with their inner state. They get rattled by criticism, inflated by praise, wounded by rejection, and thrown off by other people's opinions. Without noticing, they've simply swapped one dependency for another. The dark psychology of value teaches that true respect isn't built on possessions or declarations. It's built on becoming emotionally unshakable. Robert Greene often points out that the deepest form of power belongs to whoever stays composed while everyone else is losing their grip. People instinctively search for emotional cracks. They study what angers you, what makes you feel small, what strokes your ego, and what makes you lose your cool. Once they find those weak spots, they don't need any kind of force. They just press the right button, and you hand over your own peace willingly. That's why emotional discipline isn't just a personal trait, it's armor that protects your worth from anyone trying to pull your strings. Consider how predictable most people are. A little flattery inflates their ego. A minor insult ruins their whole day. Being overlooked spikes their anxiety. A bit of attention makes them feel whole again. Their emotional state rides entirely on someone else's behavior. On the surface it looks normal, but underneath it reveals real dependency. And anyone whose emotions can be steered can also have their decisions steered. Once others catch on to that, respect fades, because they now know exactly which buttons to push. Now imagine someone entirely different. They can take a compliment without letting it inflate them. They can absorb criticism without spiraling into defensiveness. Their composure holds steady whether they're being admired or dismissed. Their confidence isn't borrowed from public approval. It never lived there to begin with. Instead, it's rooted in self-awareness, discipline, and a sense of purpose. That kind of steadiness has a powerful psychological ripple effect. People become cautious around anyone whose reactions they can't predict because manipulation relies on predictability. One of the biggest mistakes people make is feeling obligated to respond to every attack on their character, explaining themselves, defending every choice, disproving every accusation. But the harder you fight to control what others think of you, the more power you're quietly surrendering to them. Every explanation is proof that their opinion has taken root in your head. Every emotional reaction confirms they've found a way to sway you. Genuinely strong people understand that not every opinion earns a response, because not every voice deserves authority over how they feel. This isn't about turning cold or numb. Emotional discipline is worlds apart from emotional suppression. You'll still feel disappointment, frustration, and anger. The difference is you won't let those fleeting emotions dictate permanent decisions. You pause before reacting. You observe before you speak. You ask yourself whether a situation genuinely deserves your energy or whether someone is simply baiting you. That single pause can protect years of hard-earned respect. There's another overlooked principle here. Praise can manipulate you just as effectively as criticism. Someone who understands your hunger for approval can flatter you until your judgment blurs. They'll tell you exactly what you want to hear, knowing your ego is easier to sway than your logic. That's why emotionally grounded people stay balanced through both success and failure. They value recognition without becoming addicted to it. They welcome honest feedback without letting it define who they are. Their emotional footing stays steady no matter what's swirling around them. Notice how the most respected people rarely rush to react. Their silence isn't hesitation, it's calculation. They understand that every emotional response reveals something about them, so by staying calm, they force others to show their hand first. While everyone else is caught up in emotion, they're quietly reading patterns, motives, and openings. That patience gives them a real edge because they act from clarity instead of impulse. The dark psychology of value starts working in your favor the moment people realize they can no longer sway you through fear, flattery, guilt, or rejection. They begin treating you differently, understanding that your emotions are simply off the table. Respect grows naturally once others see that your peace can't be bought with compliments or taken with insults. Your real strength is no longer what you own. It's the quiet certainty that no one else runs your inner world. And once your emotions become unshakable, the next lesson is how silence and mystery can quietly raise your value without a single extra word. #use silence and mystery to increase your value. Once people can no longer emotionally manipulate you, they'll try a new approach, trying to figure you out. They study your words, your habits, your reactions, your decisions, hoping to anticipate your next move. This is exactly where most people unknowingly weaken their own standing. They overshare. They explain every choice, justify every move, and feel a compulsive need to make sure everyone understands them fully. But the dark psychology of value points to a different lesson. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to control. The less mystery you carry, the less effort people put into understanding you. Respect isn't earned by constantly proving yourself. It grows when your actions carry so much weight that your words become almost unnecessary. Robert Greene has long emphasized that mystery is one of history's most enduring forms of influence. Complete openness rarely creates fascination toward what they can't fully figure out. The mind can't resist trying to solve what feels incomplete. That's why the person who speaks with purpose is remembered far more than the person who never stops talking. Silence leaves room for imagination, and imagination often outweighs certainty. Picture someone who explains everything about themselves constantly, defending every rumor, replying to every criticism, announcing every future plan, sharing every passing thought before anyone even asks. It might look like honesty at first, but psychologically it reads as a deep need for approval. The more they talk, the more they give away, until everyone can see exactly what motivates them, what scares them, what excites them, and in turn, exactly how to influence them. Predictability becomes their biggest liability. Compare that to someone who's careful with their words, not secretive, not dishonest, just selective about what deserves airtime. They let their work speak before their promises do. They let outcomes answer questions that explanations never could. When challenged, they stay calm instead of scrambling to defend themselves. When misunderstood, they don't panic. They trust that consistent action, given enough time, reveals character far better than any argument could. This quiet restraint changes the psychological dynamic entirely. People start paying closer attention because every word they do hear feels deliberate, not impulsive. One of the most common mistakes is confusing silence with weakness. In reality, silence often signals confidence. People who are genuinely secure in their worth rarely feel the need to convince everyone else of it. They understand that constant self-promotion can actually cheapen their achievements. There's real strength in letting people discover your character gradually, rather than laying out every accomplishment up front. Humans place more meaning on what they uncover themselves than on what's repeatedly broadcast at them. There's another layer to why mystery builds respect. When people can't fully predict you, they stay mentally engaged. They replay conversations, second-guess their assumptions, and pay closer attention to your actions. It's not a game you're playing, it's simply that uncertainty naturally holds attention. The mind hates an unfinished puzzle. The less people know about your intentions, the more energy they invest trying to understand them. Ironically, saying less often makes your presence feel bigger, because people fill the silence with their own curiosity. This principle also protects your goals. Many people broadcast every ambition before they've even taken the first step, chasing encouragement instead of progress. But once a plan is spoken aloud too soon, it tends to lose steam. Disciplined people understand that quiet action beats loud intention every time. They focus on execution while others are still busy explaining their dreams. When success finally arrives, it speaks with an authority that words never could. Notice how genuinely influential people rarely react to every misunderstanding or defend themselves against every opinion out there. They know controlling every perception is impossible, so instead they focus on controlling their own conduct. Over time, consistency outweighs explanation. People stop listening to rumors because they've already witnessed your character in action. That's when respect becomes rooted in reality instead of impression. The dark psychology of value reminds us that every unnecessary explanation gives away a small piece of your power, while every moment of deliberate silence strengthens it. When your words are few but meaningful, people listen more closely. When your actions consistently line up with your principles, no one needs constant reassurance about who you are. Your values start speaking before you do, carrying a quiet authority that no amount of talking could ever manufacture. And once silence and mystery start raising your value, The next step is building a life so disciplined and purposeful that your presence becomes genuinely hard to replace. #build a life that commands respect. By this point, you understand that value starts with protecting your time, your attention, and your emotional footing. But there's another truth separating respected people from those who get consistently overlooked. People don't respect potential nearly as much as they respect proof. You can call yourself talented, sharp, or capable all day long, but words rarely build lasting influence on their own. Respect grows when your life itself becomes undeniable evidence of discipline, skill, and direction. The dark psychology of value shows that people naturally place higher worth on those who are hard to replace. The less you depend on outside approval and the more valuable your abilities become, the harder it is for anyone to dismiss or underestimate you. Consistently shows that real power is never borrowed from popularity. It comes from mastering something others can't easily copy. Throughout history, the most respected figures weren't the ones demanding recognition. They became masters of their craft, and recognition simply followed. Their confidence wasn't propped up by compliments. It was backed by competence. When your skills create real value, your reputation starts speaking before you even walk into the room. Most people make the mistake of pouring more energy into looking successful than actually becoming successful. They spend hours performing confidence while neglecting the habits that would actually build it. They chase validation instead of mastery, attention instead of excellence. This might buy temporary admiration, but eventually reality exposes the gap. Image fades fast when there's no substance underneath it. Human psychology is remarkably good at spotting authenticity over time. The person quietly improving every day will always outlast the person constantly chasing applause. Picture two people starting at the same workplace. One spends every chance they get talking up their abilities and reminding everyone of their achievements. The other says very little. Instead, they consistently solve hard problems, keep their word, show up prepared, and quietly sharpen their skills without needing recognition. Months later, who's earned deeper respect? Almost always, it's the second person. Their value no longer rests on opinion. It rests on undeniable results. And results silence doubt in a way words never manage to. This is where the psychology of value becomes especially powerful. People instinctively protect relationships with those who consistently improve their lives. If your presence brings solutions instead of excuses, discipline instead of chaos, and reliability instead of inconsistency, people start associating your name with real value. That shift changes how they treat you. They listen more carefully, they value your time more, and they think twice before risking your trust, because they understand replacing someone genuinely valuable isn't easy. Another common trap is letting your identity hinge on a single relationship, job, or person's opinion. It creates hidden fragility because your confidence becomes tied to something outside your control. But when you keep developing your knowledge, communication, discipline, and character, your sense of value becomes internal rather than borrowed. You stop fearing lost opportunities because you know you're capable of creating new ones. That quiet certainty changes how people see you. Confidence rooted in real competence feels entirely different from confidence built on empty talk. Purpose plays a critical role here too. People are naturally drawn to those whose lives are clearly moving somewhere. Someone with meaningful goals doesn't waste their hours chasing approval because their attention is invested in something bigger. They understand every day spent improving raises their value tomorrow. This long-term mindset has a powerful psychological effect. Others start to realize your life doesn't revolve around earning their approval. Instead, they recognize that if they want to stay part of your journey, they'll need to bring value to it themselves. The harder truth is this: people tend to test those who seem uncertain, but rarely challenge those who consistently show strength through action. When your standards stay high, your work stays sharp, and your discipline stays consistent, you quietly remove the need to ever demand respect. Your lifestyle becomes the argument, your habits become the proof. Every decision reinforces that your value was built through effort, not handed to you through someone else's approval. Never forget, the world doesn't reward people who merely claim to matter. It rewards people who become impossible to replace. When your presence consistently creates value, people stop viewing you as optional and start viewing you as essential. That's when respect stops being something you chase and becomes something people willingly give. Because genuine excellence carries a psychological weight no amount of persuasion can match. And once your value becomes undeniable through discipline and purpose, the final step is making sure anyone who disrespects you learns that disrespect always costs more than respect does. Hashtag make disrespect cost more than respect. Once your value is grounded in discipline, competence, and purpose, one last test decides whether people keep respecting you or slowly start pushing your limits. People are remarkably observant. They notice what you tolerate even more than what you say. They clock the jokes you brush off, the broken promises you excuse, the repeated disrespect you let slide, and the boundaries you fail to enforce. This is where the dark psychology of value becomes impossible to ignore. Standards without consequences eventually mean nothing. Respect isn't upheld by simply stating rules. It's upheld by proving your standards can't be crossed without changing the relationship. Robert Greene has often noted that power depends less on intimidation and more on consistency. Many people assume respect comes from winning arguments or acting tough, but emotional outbursts usually weaken authority since they expose a loss of control. Genuinely respected people rarely need dramatic confrontations. Instead, they quietly adjust their behavior the moment someone repeatedly crosses a line. They pull back unnecessary access, scale back their investment, and stop rewarding disrespect with their time and attention. That calm consistency lands with far more force than anger ever could. Consider someone who constantly complains about being disrespected but never actually changes their response. Every time they're ignored, they keep chasing. Every time they're taken for granted, they give even more. Every time trust is broken, they hand out another chance with no real change required. What message does that send? That their boundaries are negotiable. Over time, people stop even wondering whether they can cross the line, because experience has already taught them nothing meaningful will happen if they do. Now picture the opposite. Someone who stays polite, composed, and respectful, but the moment a pattern of disrespect appears, responds with quiet action rather than emotional drama. They stop investing where appreciation has dried up. They don't argue, beg, or seek payback. They simply withdraw their time, attention, and energy from relationships that keep ignoring their standards. At first, this silence might confuse people. They expected another argument, another explanation, another emotional outburst. Instead, they're confronted with something far heavier, the real consequence of losing access to someone who knows their own worth. This taps into one of the strongest psychological truths about respect. People naturally repeat behaviors that get rewarded and gradually drop behaviors that carry real consequences. If disrespect never costs anything, it quietly becomes normal. But once people realize crossing your boundaries means less access, less trust, and fewer chances, they start adjusting, not out of intimidation, but because people instinctively protect what they're afraid of losing. The possibility of losing your presence teaches a lesson arguments never could. There's an important distinction here, though. Consequences aren't revenge. Revenge is driven by anger and a desire to make someone suffer. Consequences are driven by self-respect and a decision to protect your own peace. One is about controlling someone else, the other is simply about refusing to reward harmful behavior. That difference is what separates emotional maturity from emotional impulsiveness. You're not punishing anyone for letting you down. You're deciding your life has no room left for repeated disrespect. Plenty of people avoid setting boundaries because they fear being seen as cold or difficult. But consider the alternative. Every time you stay silent while your standards get violated over and over, you're also sending yourself a message that your peace matters less than someone else's comfort. Over time, that quietly erodes your own confidence. Self-respect strengthens every time your actions align with your principles, and it weakens every time you abandon those principles just to dodge short-term discomfort. Notice that the most respected people rarely announce their boundaries with long speeches or constant reminders. Their actions make the expectations unmistakably clear. If trust keeps getting broken, they step back. If loyalty is abused, they scale down access. If respect disappears, they stop investing as though nothing happened. That consistency creates certainty, and certainty is what commands respect, because people always know exactly where they stand. The dark psychology of value teaches that people don't truly grasp how important your presence is until they feel what life is like without unlimited access to it. Your time, attention, trust, and loyalty aren't bottomless resources to be handed out, regardless of how you're treated. They're privileges reserved for where respect actually exists. The moment your actions start reflecting that truth, people stop treating your boundaries as suggestions and start recognizing them as part of who you are. And once people understand that disrespect always carries a cost, the final step is building a reputation so solid that your name alone commands respect before you've said a word. #build a reputation that speaks before you do. Everything up to this point leads to one final principle, the one that decides whether respect becomes fleeting or permanent. You can protect your value, master your emotions, embrace mystery, build undeniable competence, and enforce firm boundaries, but none of it matters if people watch your behavior shift depending on the situation. People don't place their deepest respect in talent alone. They place it in consistency. The dark psychology of value teaches that people trust patterns far more than promises. They watch what you consistently do, not just what you occasionally say. Over time, those repeated actions become your reputation, and once a reputation is set, it starts shaping how people treat you before you've even opened your mouth. Robert Greene has often described reputation as one of the most powerful forms of invisible influence. It enters every room ahead of you. People hear your name, recall your history, and instantly form expectations. If your reputation is built on emotional volatility, broken promises, or weak boundaries, people will approach you expecting exactly that. But if it's built on discipline, reliability, self-respect, and calm confidence, people naturally become more careful in how they treat you. They don't need to be told to respect you. Your track record has already taught them what happens if they don't. Most people damage their own reputation without even realizing it. One day they hold their boundaries with total confidence. The next day, they abandon those same boundaries out of fear of losing someone's approval. They preach honesty until telling the truth gets uncomfortable. They talk about self-respect until loneliness convinces them to accept treatment they once swore they'd never tolerate. These small contradictions feel harmless in the moment, but psychologically, people notice consistency far more than intention. Every time your actions contradict your stated principles, people grow less certain of who you really are, and that uncertainty chips away at respect. Now think about people whose presence naturally commands attention. They rarely need to remind anyone of their standards because their behavior has stayed consistent for years. They keep their word even when no one's watching. They stay composed under pressure instead of letting emotion take the wheel. They turn down opportunities that clash with their values, even tempting ones. They don't bend their principles to match whoever's in the room. That consistency builds trust, and trust becomes the bedrock of lasting respect. People know exactly what to expect because your character has become reliably, predictably strong. This is where the psychology of value reaches its peak. People instinctively test uncertainty. If they sense your standards shift depending on who's in front of you, they'll keep pushing your limits. But once they discover your principles hold steady regardless of status, wealth, popularity, or pressure, they stop testing you altogether. They realize there's no opening for manipulation because your decisions are guided by values, not convenience. That kind of respect can't be forced through intimidation. It's earned purely through unwavering consistency. There's another reason reputation carries so much weight. Once people repeatedly witness your integrity, they start filling in the gaps on their own. You no longer have to explain every decision because your past actions have already answered the question. When someone hears your name, they connect it with reliability, emotional control, discipline, and self-respect, and that mental association shapes every future interaction. Before they ask for your time, they'll think it over. Before they break your trust, they'll remember how seriously you guard your standards. Before they underestimate you, they'll remember the reputation you've spent years earning. Many people assume reputation is built through popularity or public recognition. In truth, it's built quietly through thousands of small, ordinary decisions. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, honesty over convenience, patience over impulse, and purpose over approval. These choices rarely get applause in the moment, but together, they shape the reputation that ultimately speaks for you before you ever say a word.